When a diver descends in a lake or ocean, pressure is produced by the weight of the water on the diver. As a diver swims deeper into the water, the pressure on the diver's body increases at a rate of about 1 atmosphere of pressure per 10 meters of depth. The table and graph below represent the total pressure Y on a diver given the depth underwater in meters. So here's our depth, and here's that pressure. So it asks us to write an equation describing the relationship between the pressure exerted on a diver and the diver's depth underwater. So let's think about what we'd have to do to write that equation. Well, our starting point, when x is 0, we're at 1. And our slope, it's increasing by 0.1 each time. So that means our slope is 0.1. So it's y equals 0.1x plus 1. So the initial is 1, and we're increasing by 0.1 each time. And the slope of the line, slope, was 0.1. Now what does that mean? Well, it was 0.1 atm, atmospheric pressure, per 1 meter. What is the y-intercept? Well, the y-intercept was the 0.01. What does that mean in context? Well, that means when let me write that in words. When the diver is 0 meters underwater, the pressure is 1 atm. This is slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. M is the slope, b is the y-intercept. Identify the slope and the y-intercept given by this equation. Well, that's easy. Our slope is the coefficient of x, so the slope is -2, and the y-intercept is the 9, so that would be the 0.09. So let's take that equation. Can we create a table of values for y equals -2x plus 9? Well, sure I can. Let's zoom in a little bit. So when x is -2, I'd have -2 times x, so -2 times -2 plus 9. That's 4 plus 9 is 13. When x is 0, -2 times 0 plus 9, that's 0 plus 9 is 9. When x is +2, -4 plus 9 is 5. When x is 4, I'm going to have -8 plus 9 is 1. When x is 5, that's going to be -10 plus 9 is -1. So when we graph this, -2, 13, 0 is 9, 2 goes to 5, 4 goes to 1, 5, -1. In this problem, we can have decimals and such. So when I connect the dots, I can make it a continuous line. Shoot. Explain how to find the value of the slope from the table. So remember, To find the slope from a table, we're going to use that y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Difference in y's over the difference in x's. So let's pick, I don't know, these look like good points. So y2 minus y1 be 5 minus 9. x2 minus x1 would be 2 minus 0. We would get a negative 4 over 2, which is negative 2. Does that match up with the equation? It does. Explain how to find the y-intercept from the table. The y-intercept, is when x is 0. So in the table, it's 0, 9. Explain how to find slope from a graph. Slope from a graph is rise over run. Well, let's double check. If I take a point here and a point here, I have to go 1, 2 down. So that's negative 2 and over 1. How do you find the y-intercept from the graph? Y-intercept is where the graph touches the y-axis. So if I look at the graph, there is the y-intercept. And it's crossing at 9, so it's the point 0, 9. So here are some problems to check your understanding. We can pause the video if you want while y'all try these. And you can double check if you got the right answers. Hopefully you got all those right. Monica gets on an elevator in a skyscraper. The elevator starts to move at a rate of negative 20 feet per second. After 6 seconds on the elevator, Monica is 350 feet from the ground floor. So the ground floor would be at level 0, right? Okay, so the rate of the elevator is negative. What does this mean in the situation? Well, it means the elevator is going down. What value in slope-intercept form of the equation does this rate represent? The rate is the slope. How many feet was Monica above the ground when she got on the elevator? So take a minute if you need to. One way you can do it is to make a table. So we've got our time and our height, right? So we got our time when we started. We got our time after 6 seconds. And it said after 6 seconds she was 350 feet from the ground floor. So 350 feet up. So where was she before that? And how could we find it? Well, if it's 20 feet per second, 20 feet per second for 6 seconds. How far did she travel in that time frame? Well, that would be 120 feet. And she was going down that much, right? So she had to be 120 feet above when she started. So she was 470 feet above the ground floor. What value in the slope-intercept form would that represent? Well, that's at time 0. So that would be your y-intercept. So can we write an equation now? Oh, and it wants us to use x and y, so we'll change that to an x and change that to a y. Y equals mx plus b. So the rate is the slope. Plus the y-intercept. What do the x and the y represent? Well, the x was the time in seconds, and y is the height in feet. What does the y-intercept represent? Monica started 470 feet above ground at time 0. Use the equation you wrote to determine at this rate how long it will take after Monica enters the elevator for her to exit on the ground floor. So let's think about what that means. We want to know when her height is 0. So this is when is y equal to 0. So when will that side of the equation be 0? So we want to figure out when negative 20x plus 470 gets to 0. Well, that's easy to solve. Need to undo our addition and subtraction first. Oh, you can't see that color very well. I won't use the pink again. Subtract 470 from each side. So we have negative 20x equals negative 470. Divide by negative 20. So negative 470 divided by negative 20. X equals 23.5. 0.5. So what does that mean? It takes Monica 23.5 seconds to reach the ground floor. Check for understanding. Write the equation in slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is y equals, and then we got the x and a constant on the other side. So let's review how to solve for y. Get y by itself. Well, I need to move this 3x to the other side. So let's subtract 3x. So we'll end up with negative 2y equals, that's a negative 3x plus 16. Remember, those are not like terms, so I can't combine like terms there. I need to divide by negative 2. So over here I need to divide both terms by negative 2. Y equals, so let's divide the first term. Negative 3 divided by negative 2 is a positive 3 over 2 x. 16 divided by negative 2 is going to be a negative 8. Number 18. A flowering plant stands 6.5 inches tall when it is placed under a growing light. Its growth is 0.25 inches per day. So notice that per day. That's its rate. And this is the starting height. So what do those mean about an equation? So let's mark this with 17, and this is going to be 18. So y equals, growing at 0.25, it's 0.25x, and it started at 6.5 tall. What do x and y represent? So it said this rate is per day, so x is the number of days under the light. And what does y represent? Well, y is the height of the plant. Use your equation to determine how many days ago the plant was placed under the light. So, if it's 11.25 inches tall now, let's figure out how long it's been under the light. So I want to find out when 0.25x plus 6.5 equals 11.25. So we need to subtract 6.5. .25x equals 11.25 minus 6.5, get 4.75. Divided by 0.25. x equals 19. So that means it was placed in the light 19 days ago. Now you've had experience with slope-intercept before. The next lesson talks about something called point slope. Here is the equation for point slope. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So in this form, the y1 and the x1 come from a point on the line. And of course, m is your slope. So in example A, we are given a slope of 1/2 and a 0.25. So look at how they plug into the equation. Y minus the y value equals m, slope, times x minus the x value. So sometimes it's helpful to, when you have your point, label it x1, y1. x1 is the x, y1 is the y value. Notice how easy it can be to graph this. If we plot the point 2, 5, and we know our slope is 1/2, that's up 1 over 2, we can easily plot a point from this equation. This equation can be the easiest one once you get the hang of it. So let's try some. So I'm going to come over to the side to do my work. So on A, the point is -2, 7. That's my x1, y1. My slope is 2/3. So the form of this line is y minus your y1 equals m, parentheses x minus x1. So y minus the y value equals the slope, parentheses x minus the x value. That setup is going to be the same every problem. Y minus y1 is the 7. Slope goes here. X minus the x value. So x minus a -2 would actually turn into plus 2. On B, I'm given 6 and -1. That's my x1, y1. And the slope is -5/4. So if you want to try it and then look up and see if you get the right answer. It's super, super easy. Now, could we go backwards? Could we identify the slope and the point given? Slope is super easy to spot. The slope is 3/8. The point sometimes is a little bit hard. So it's supposed to be x minus the x value. So the x value is a +3. But what about the y value? What would I have subtracted to turn this into +4? Well, that would have to be a -4. Over here, what's the slope? Be -5/2. What x value had to be subtracted to get +3? Well, that'd be a -3. And then y minus the y value means the y value is 6. Let's see when this comes in handy. Okay, so the town of San Simon, wherever that is, charges its residents for trash pickup and water usage. Each month, the city charges a flat fee for trash pickup and a fee of 25 cents per gallon. Oop, I see that word, per gallon. That's my rate. In January, one resident used 44 gallons of water and had a bill of $16. So if X is the number of gallons and Y is the bill amount, then write a point for the information given. So X is the number of gallons, and it said we had 44 gallons, and Y is the bill, then our point is 44.16. What does 0.25 or 25 cents per gallon represent? Well, that's the rate of change. What else does rate of change mean? That's the slope. So if we have a point and we have our slope, you can immediately write in point slope. Y minus the Y value equals the slope times X minus the X value. Now the beauty of writing it this way is we can easily change it into slope-intercept form if we need to. And I'll show you how you can do it. To get it back into slope-intercept form, we're going to need to distribute and then solve for Y. So let's review how to distribute. I'm going to distribute this 0.25 and multiply it by the X and then by the 44. Y minus 16. 0.25 times X is 0.25X. 0.25 times 44, and I cannot believe I just grabbed a calculator. That's going to be a negative 11. How would I solve for Y? Well, I need to get rid of this minus 16. So the opposite is to add 16. And I do have another constant over here, so I'll add 16 to it. So Y equals 0.25X. When I combine like terms, that becomes plus 5. What does the Y-intercept represent? So which part was the Y-intercept again? The Y-intercept is the 5. So what does that mean again? Y-intercept is when X is 0. So that's the $5 is the cost for 0 gallons of water. Oh, that sounds funny. Why would they charge that? Oh, that's the flat fee. Here's some check your understanding problems. I'm not going to talk through them. We can pause the video. You can try them. And then check your answer. Jamila and Ryan were asked to write the equation of the line through the points 6, 4, and 3, 5. Both Jamila and Ryan determined the slope was negative 1/3. Jamila wrote the equation of the line as y minus 4 equals negative 1/3 x minus 6. And Ryan wrote the equation as y minus 5 equals negative 1/3 x minus 3. So first off, I just want to verify that they got the slope right. Slope can be found by y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y value minus y value over x minus x. That gives me 1 over negative 3, which is negative 1/3. Cool. So let's see what happened here. They both used that slope, but it looks like Jamila used the point 6, 4, and Ryan used the point 3, 5. So they came up with these two different equations. So can we rewrite these into slope-intercept form? Well, we'll need to distribute and do some things. So I'm going to do Jamila's in one color. And then I'm going to do Ryan's equation in another color. And let's put them into slope-intercept form and compare them. So to do that, we need to distribute. Shoop, shoop. So y minus 4 equals negative 1/3 x. And that's going to be a plus 2. Add 4, add 4. Y equals negative 1/3 x plus 6. How about over here? Distribute. Y minus 5 equals negative 1/3 x. Negative 1/3 times negative 3 is plus 1. Then I'm going to add 5, add 5. Y equals negative 1/3 x plus 6. Whose equation was correct? Well, it looks like both of them. That's awesome. So it doesn't matter which point we use, we can find the right equation. So number 8, we need to pick a point and find the slope. So here's a point, here's a point. We could use either one to write the equation. That's pretty cool. But I need to find the slope first. So to get from here to there, I would go up 5. And then this is over 1. So my slope is 5 over 1. And I think I'm going to pick the point 2, 2. Could you pick the other one? The other point is 3, 7. So take a second, pick which point you want, and write your equation. Take your point slope, and let's rewrite it in slope-intercept. You should all get y equals 5x minus 8. And that's all for today.